Hey, this is Joseph Lebrec for ActiveTuts Plus, and I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to use Flash Catalyst to import a Photoshop comp and create a basic movie trailer type website from that comp inside Catalyst, and eventually, hook it up with a bunch of nice transitions and effects and so forth. So what I have here is a movie trailer. And this is not a real movie trailer, but it will be used as an example for this particular project. So it's a trailer for something called Nightmare. And this is what we'll base the entire design of our comp around. Okay, so let's open up Photoshop. And here you can see that I've laid out a comp here using some of the elements from the trailer. So I have the title here, the subtitle, and I have three different states, if you will, for our actual movie trailer website. I've got a state for the trailer itself, I've got one for the synopsis of the film, and another for the cast list. So this is sort of a header area. There's a place to toggle the audio on and off. And then the content area is here in the middle, and there's a basic footer down at the bottom. If we look at what we have here for layers, basically I've got a navigation layer. I've got in there the speaker icon, what's up in the corner, and then basic navigation elements, so text pieces for trailer, synopsis, and so forth. And on each of these I have some layer effects applied, so some drop shadow, right? Outer glow, pattern overlay. So all of these are set up the same. And you can see here, or look in the files yourself when you get a chance. So then I have the titles area, and in titles we've just got the basic title stuff there, and also the header sort of black background image that's semi-opaque there. I'm going to skip over content for now, and we can look at the footer, in which we have basic text and another one of those sort of semi-opaque black blocks, and then just a basic grungy kind of scratched up metallic rusty background here, to sort of match with the look of the trailer itself. So my content area, let's have a look at that. So that has a number of different things here. I've got two photos. One is for the synopsis, which is this sort of a image of a gravestone here. And then I also have a cast photo, which is a picture of a woman. And we've also got, sort of a placeholder for where the trailer could appear. So aside from that stuff, I've also made up this scroll box for any of the text that we have. And this scroll box is going to have, as long as Photoshop doesn't glitch out on me here, the text area, we've got a number of different elements. We have the basic text itself. And then we have parts for our scroll box. So this is going to be scrollable text within this box. And we're going to hook all this together within Catalyst itself. But inside Photoshop, one of the things you have to remember when working in Catalyst is just to, group everything nicely as we have it here, and to label all your layers very specifically. And the reason for that is because when it's brought into Catalyst, you want to know exactly what you're dealing with. So we've got an up block here. We've got the thumb block, which is this guy right here. So this is a draggable thumb. And then we have the down button here, and the basic rail that everything works with, and then the block which everything's going to actually scroll in. So these are just vector pieces here, but we can use those within Catalyst to create a functioning scrollable container. And that's basically it. We've got all this stuff that's sort of hooked up and ready for us. And all we need to do is bring that into Flash Catalyst. So let's go out of Photoshop and actually step into Catalyst here. And when you get to Catalyst, there's a few different things you can do. You can open a new project from an Illustrator or a Photoshop file. And you can also use an FXG file that might be created from something like Fireworks. So we're going to open up a Photoshop file since that's the point of origin we're at there. So here's our nightmare.psd. And we're presented with some import options. I'm going to change the background color. So this is the color of our stage to black. And width and height, I'm going to keep the same. That's fine. If we wanted to, we could go into advanced and we could specify with each particular element that we created in Photoshop, so each layer, exactly how we want it to import, whether to, if it's text, retain some sort of editability, if we want to flatten it, to rasterize any of our vector objects, and that sort of thing. We also have, if we don't want to deal with each one individually, these sort of general options here. And these are the defaults: keep editable, crop, and so forth. So if we just keep it, as the defaults here, it's going to analyze the file and bring in, all our different assets into a Flash Catalyst project. And you can see here that it doesn't exactly look like it did when we brought it in, when we were looking at it in Photoshop, right? Some of the things are similar, but other things just aren't. For instance, this text here, doesn't look nearly as nice and kind of scratchy and everything as it does here. Catalyst has actually gotten rid of, all of those layer effects that we applied to that. So we don't want to do that. For this project, we want to do, we want to preserve, all of that stuff. So let's import again. And instead of keeping image layers editable, we're going to flatten them. Shape layers, so these are the vector objects, let's flatten those too. And text layers, for sure, let's flatten them. If we choose to do vector outlines, it will retain the look of all of those things, all of our text areas. But what it's going to do, like say for the word synopsis, synopsis itself, if we go into navigation here, we've got drop shadow, outer glow, and pattern overlay. So if we brought that into Catalyst and chose vector outlines, it's going to create pretty much 3 separate objects based on this one object. So an object for the drop shadow, an object for the pattern overlay, and so forth. And that's not something we want to deal with. We're just going to flatten it for this instance here. And as I mentioned again, if you want fine control over each particular item, you can go into advanced and do that. It behaves very similarly to the way that you import Photoshop documents within Flash Professional, if you're used to that. So let's hit OK, and it's going to analyze the file again, and it's going to bring in all of these objects for us. Okay, so you can see here that things look exactly like they do inside Photoshop, inside Catalyst here. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go through and create some states for each one of these pieces. So a trailer state, a synopsis state, and a cast state. Once we do that, we're going to hook up these different buttons to actually switch between the states. So what we can do is go through and actually duplicate this state 2 more times. So then we have 3 different pages here. So you can see pages and states are two terms that are sort of interoperable within Catalyst. This is our default state, page 1. So let's go in here and what we'll do is start enabling different pieces of content on each state so things look a bit different, right? So we've got our content area here. And on page 1, let's include the cast photo. We don't want that. We want the trailer, right? So page 1 is going to be the trailer. And then we have page 2. And page 2, as we can see from my navigation, is the synopsis. So let's have a synopsis photo here. And we're also going to want, our scroll box eventually. Maybe we'll just enable that for here. And what I'm going to do here is actually take this scroll box. And you can see that since I have grouped this, I can just select the entire thing. And all of the different parts from my scroll box that I defined in Photoshop are selected here. So this makes it very easy to take these 6 items and convert the artwork into a component. What we're going to do first is take the pieces in here that actually are going to make up the vertical scroll bar. So up, thumb, down, and rail. And we're going to turn these all into a vertical scroll bar component. So it is now a vertical scroll bar component, but Catalyst lets us know that in order to make it work correctly, we have to edit the parts and assign each particular part to play a different role in our scroll bar. So this top one here, we're going to want that to be the up button. This one here, we're going to want to be the thumb. This large one is going to be our track. And then this one down at the bottom is going to be our down button. And one of the really cool things about this in Catalyst is that you don't actually have to, assign all of these parts to it. You can see as I check these off, it keeps track for me exactly what's there. If I just wanted an up and down button, I could do that. If I just wanted a rail, a track, and a thumb, I could do that too. So it's pretty flexible as far as that goes. Let's go back out there. And the next thing we'll do is take the text piece and also the vertical scroll bar that we just created. And you can see inside our scroll box group here, all that stuff that we used to create the vertical scroll bar is now just grouped as vertical scroll bar. So we're going to take this and turn it all into a scroll panel. Okay, now we edit parts and we choose the text and say this is going to be our scrolling content. And then we can modify this a bit so it's not as, so we've got some padding around our background pieces here, right? Then when we click this, there's no other part. It's a vertical scroll bar. It knows that. So let's go back out to here, to Nightmare. And let's go and copy all this stuff and jump to page 3, which is our cast page. And we can paste that right in there. And we'll also enable our cast photo. So, this being just a demo, we can assume that there's lots of really interesting information about this lady and fellow cast members here, right? And likewise on the synopsis page, we've got a whole bunch of really interesting information about the film itself. So let's go, and we're going to go and actually create a run project here. So you can do Control Enter, or you can just go File, Run Project. It's going to build this out. It's going to compile it for us. And open it up inside of our browser. So you can see here we've got the the basic trailer that it starts out with. We want to go to the synopsis of the cast page to try those out, but guess what? We can't yet because we haven't hooked up any of these buttons here. So let's go do that. So I'm going to click on trailer, and I'm going to change this into a button component. And once it's a button component, we can try and modify any of these states that a button component has. The up state, which is its normal rest state, an over state, which occurs on a hover, a down state, which is on a press, or a disabled state. So let's go and change the over state. We'll select the component, and then I can do something like add a filter to it, change its blend mode, and so forth. I'm going to go in and, just add a filter to this. So let's actually just add a glow filter. And it gives us a little box to choose from here. I'll choose this kind of color, this kind of yellow color. And the settings are probably just fine for this. And let's do the same thing for synopsis. So make it a button. And we're going to go in here, and we can choose each state from within here as well. And you can see here, this is our main Nightmare route. This is this main stage. And then we're inside synopsis button now. So each component can have its own states. This all works off of the Flex framework. So the Flex framework has this idea of states. So different states or pages of your application. It's the same thing with a button. A button can have many states. So again, we'll choose this, add a filter, and we'll just use the same filter on each one for consistency. And again, choose that sort of yellow color. At least I think that's the same color. And then we've got our cast that we're going to change into a button here. And again, edit our appearance. So overstate. And the cool thing is you could do pretty much whatever you want. You could bring in other assets for an overstate. You could resize it. You could do whatever Catalyst allows you to do, which is quite a bit. So now if we test it, and let's just save this out here. So let's run project again. Okay, so it loads it. And now you can see as I hover over each of these that we actually get, a nice hover effect. So, someone would know, oh, hey, I can click on this. But we still need to tie in some interactivity here. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to click on each of these buttons. So click on trailer first. We're going to add an interaction. So on click, play transition to state. Choose state. Well, we want to go to page 1 for that. And you can say, when on any state. Because we're always going to go to page 1. So any state, go to page 1. So add interaction on click. And we want to go to state 2 for synopsis and when in any state. And with cast, we want to go to page 3, when in any state. So now if we go through here, we can see trailer, synopsis, and cast. Each time I click on one of these, it tells us play transition to page 1, 2, and 3. We don't have any transitions yet. And you can see down here, this is the timeline for Flash Catalyst. and it gives us our state transitions here. So from page 1 to page 2, page 1 to page 3, and so forth. And you can specify how you want any of the objects in each particular state or page to behave or to appear as it's moving from one state to the next, which allows for some interesting transition effects and so forth. But that's just fine for now. Again, if I go to page 1, you can see that these buttons all carry across because when in any state, right? Okay. So let's go and run our project once more. So here it goes, compiling our building nightmare. And it pops up. So our hover effects work. And when I click on each one, you can see that it does, for sure, go to each one of these different states. And my scroll bar and scroll buttons absolutely work as well. So pretty cool. What else do we have to do in here? Well, we've got to put the trailer in here, so we've got to import a film and be able to play it. We are going to add some background audio, which is something you often have as a feature in a movie trailer site that you can toggle on and off, and we'll change that into a button to accommodate that. And of course, we also don't have any sort of transitions between our content yet. So we're going to have to dig into the timeline a bit inside of Catalyst and hook in some of that stuff as well.